and this sort of segues to like the last thing I think we should talk about, because what I like to do, as somebody who is, a person who builds algorithms and tries to apply them, I want to talk a little bit about this idea of algorithm aversion, because, basically, broadly speaking, algorithm aversion is just that people avoid algorithms after, basically seeing one negative application of it. And so, what I like is building, rules of thumb that sort of people can sort of go by, as opposed to just like painting out a number, right? So, what I would try to do in a situation like this is just to say, I wouldn't even bring the numbers to somebody who is trying to make a decision here. I would just create the list and say, the number, like I wouldn't even say the number suggested. I would be like, the coach doesn't really trust this quarterback. So what do we do about this? Like, the past coach didn't trust this quarterback in big spots. What do we, and then, you can come to me and say, like, the big thing that I get pushback with is, people coming and saying, well, hey, like, how do you measure that? Right. We've gotten that question a lot. Like, hey, you're saying that you're trying to measure discipline here, but how do you even measure that? Like, I think that there's like that tension that's always going to be there. I kind of want to ask you, as somebody who has sat in that chair, has that experience, and has, real life. I mean, you're gambling oftentimes with real life decisions that have, I can sit here in an ivory tower all I want and talk about them, but you're gambling your career on a lot of different decisions. And so, like, when people in that decision-making chair make decisions based upon things that are not, where they choose the human aspect of it over the algorithm aspect of it, is there a way that algorithm, math, proprietors like myself can get you to more towards that, truth?
Let me first start by saying algo aversion is real in our profession. It is. So you have to first have the person that you trust. You have to have, i.e., someone like yourself who understands enough to know that, leave the pomposity or the know-it-all element aside, right? Because it goes nowhere. However, to be a teacher and to be able to teach that that general manager who is open-minded enough, Eric, and also has the time in a season to sit down and to be educated by someone like yourself and a number of these unbelievably smart, intelligent data scientists, that's the key. If you have a person who really believes in their football ability and their evaluation prowess, they are going to go down swinging of their own volition versus, 2 or 3 times in a row, something going awry on an algorithm that they don't understand. They'll forever turn their back on it. So to me, it's like any business, even the business that we're in, right? When we're stepping into a building and we're pitching our product, when the time is right, the pitch is unbelievably important. And anyone, all of our people and guys that we know, and Grant Tillis, guys like Brant Tillis, like guys like that, they know when you're in an NFL building, you have to be very strategic on how you're getting that point across to the people who ultimately make the decisions. But my point is, if you can do it tactfully enough and eloquently enough, and sometimes circuitously enough, to all of a sudden that GM and the head coach is understanding what that algorithm is truly doing, man, I think the world is your oyster. I just think we have to bring along those mid 40-something GMs and later 40-something GMs and educate them. Where is the time to do that? I ask you, how would you fit that in?
I think, and I'm gonna make a plug for this show. Like, I think that's what we're doing on Mondays, right? Like, where you and I, by the way, folks, this is the first week where we've had 2 episodes. We really thank all of you for coming. And I think, this is, what we're trying to do here, right? Because you and I mean, the backstory on us is that, you and I worked as with PFF, I worked with a lot of the teams, mm-hmm. and, you were the first general manager that would actually, entertain me at all. And there's an aspect of, like, I've learned so much from you about how to be tactful and how to, push things forward. And you've learned from me about the math side of it. And I think to the point where, you're the CEO now of an analytics company in football, and I think you're very well suited for it. And you and I have talked through this, right? And you and I have, like, had awkward conversations where I'm like, hey, I think the math wasn't the best on the Julio Jones trade, but you won the trade. and that, that is your, one of your, great achievements is drafting Julio Jones and having him be a Hall of Famer. And there are different, like, you have to be, in my opinion, and this is why somebody like me will have a limited impact on the outside at times, because what I really respect about the people in the league that I know is the, like you said, Brant Tillis, like he and I talk all, he and I are friends, and like, I'll ask him like, how does this work? And he's like, well, this is what you're missing at times. And like, that's such a great, thing just to have a friend who will be able to say that to you. But like, but you can tell that the people that work for teams, they live with the realities of working with teams all the time. The same way that a mathematical biologist works with the realities of the data that's given to them out in the field all the time. And I think sometimes that's lost, but through that process, you gain trust, right? You gain trust, with you watch film with scouts so that you can understand how to build metrics. That gains trust. That's something that I think will weaken algorithm aversion in the future, just the same way that you and I, built trust through working together before. And when I say something that's maybe a little flippant on my end of the spectrum, you don't take that as necessarily like disrespectful, but you take it as like, oh, well, that's a blind spot that Eric has. And I think that helps. Like, I think that the algorithm aversion goes away if you start to immerse algorithmic people into the process of true human decision making, and to a point where you get to where that's not there. It's a distinction without a difference.